It's Memorial Day. It's time to get out of town and get on the water. This summer, gear up for the fish, the food, and the family. Cabela's Memorial Day sale. Family events, amazing deals. Your one stop before the campfire. Save $200 on Champion Patriot generators and $100 on select kayaks. Plus, get Cabela's adult and youth deluxe flotation vests for only $9.99 and $20 in Cabela's bucks when purchasing Chaco sandals. Shop in-store and online at Cabela's.com.
There's something outside.
What is that?
Radio. Welcome to Monster X Radio. Monster X Radio listeners, this is your host, Gunnar Monson. As you might know, I am also the founder of the Sasquatch Coffee Company. Go to www.squatchcoffee.com and check it out. Squatch Coffee, have you tried it yeti? This is our part two of a two-part episode, at least two parts that went. The last hour went by so fast and was full of information with our friend Thomas Sewid, but he is back with us today. So, hey, Thomas, how are you this morning?
Good morning. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are things? I'm assuming you're in Canada today.
Yes, I'm in Kent, Washington right now.
So, last time we were talking about the First Nations people interaction with the subject of Sasquatch, as well as a ton of other stuff. You are the host of a new show called Sasquatch Island. Let's pick up with that, and how did that come to be, and what is that all about?
Sasquatch Island, it's in reference to Turtle Island, what us North American Indians have referred to North America as being Turtle Island because it looks like a turtle from space. But because all of the indigenous tribes throughout Turtle Island have stories about these hair-covered creatures larger than humans, and they have names and everything, and they have different views towards it generally, but they all seem to speak on the same thing, being bipedal, covered in hair, pretty much nocturnal. And so I said, well, why not refer to Turtle Island as well as Sasquatch Island, because it is covered in Sasquatches, which is the Canadian Chehalis name that was derived from how they say Sasquatch, or with North American Indians, other people refer to as Bigfoot. So Sasquatch Island is, to go out and talk to my fellow North American Indians and hear their stories, perspectives, and possibly encounter stories to the Sasquatch, Bigfoot, in their traditional territories. When you look at the Seminole people down in Florida, and you hear people speaking about the skunk ape as well as them, and then, of course, you got California with all the reports and all the different native tribes, and Canada, Washington State. You think about it, and, it's such a wealth of information what the North American Indians have to say about the Sasquatch, because as I'm finding out, it's not a question of this creature's existence. It's, yes, we've shared our traditional territories with them since the dawn of our creations. So instead of trying to take a perspective like a lot of the academics do in this field, and skeptics, of course, that it's, prove it, and it doesn't exist, and it's not going to exist until we have conclusive scientific proof. I don't have time for that. I'm a Canadian Indian, so my belief is, yeah, they exist. So I'm just going down that path of existence, but getting the different stories and perspectives. Because number one, a lot of our elders, we just had one from northern Vancouver Island, Cam River region, just pass away yesterday. And there goes another one. And, every time a person passes, an elder, those stories are in songs and everything, and they know of our culture and heritage is gone forever. So we need to record it. And, it's not just for my tribe, it's for all tribes. And, I think in doing this, it's been sort of a taboo subject for so long. And even with a lot of First Nations and North and American Indians, they're still pretty, apprehensive to even speak about it. Some, that's their laws, they will not speak about it or share it. And I totally respect that. But it's the ones that are willing to, say, yeah, we have to get our story out there. We need to share our story so that maybe the stories about it in our tribe will be recorded forever and others will know about us. And then, of course, we have, like, res squatching that I went to in Nebraska with the Omaha tribe, Barry and Derek Webster. They're doing tours. And I just heard yesterday there's another native apparently down around, I think it's New Mexico or Arizona, that is doing tours as well, expeditions like I do. So for the people that are out there, a lot of people need to get word that these North American Indians are sharing through expeditions and tours their perspectives and stories about the Sasquatch. How that's unique. It's exciting. It's for people that weren't brought up in our cultures. It's a new chapter, a new door into Sasquatch Bigfoot equation, so that they can get more data to help them hopefully find these creatures where they live and where they research. So Sasquatch Island, the show we're filming with Wild Woman Productions, Victoria Williams and Amanda Williams, myself, and I've reached out to other North American Indians, Winona up in Canada, Rulin Kirk, Nancy in Arizona. Can't remember the other people's names in different states and provinces I've reached out to, but everyone seems to be very excited that, hey, yeah, come do an episode with us, or I'll help participate in any way we can. And, it's a lot of people have been asking me lately, you sure have a lot of irons in the fire, because they hear about how I'm reached out and am reaching out to the American casino tribes. They want people to know about their casino. They want people to go to their casino resort. That's a given. But with 268, I think it is, or more North American Indian tribes with casinos in the United States, that's a lot of competition. And then you got to factor in the non-Indian casinos, Vegas, Reno, Atlantic City, elsewhere, and it's very competitive. So how do you get people there? Well, in Washington State, Tulalip Resort and Casino, owned by the three tribes up there. I can't remember their names now, but they'll come to me. When you drive by there, you see this giant killer whale pod breaching and finning in their massive fountain, and you can't miss it when you go down the I-5 freeway. And when you're in places like Vancouver and you're jumping on different trains and that are for public transportation and even billboards, you see that whale design, and you see the Tulalip Resort and Casino. And what it is very good marketing, good advertising, because they're trying to be more competitive than the other 11 casino tribes in Washington State. So that's how Indian business is. We do it like we did back in the old days. We're warriors, always have been warriors, so we have to advertise aggressively. It's a campaign that we must win. We must draw people to our resorts. So I thought about it, and I said, hey, well, these guys want people to go to resorts. They got hotel rooms, they got conference rooms, they got slot machines and everything for games to play, for entertainment. And just like when I went to Ocean Shores to the Sasquatch Summit, in 2015, I thought, that was pretty cool. I had a lot of fun staying there. And going into the casino and nice cold beer to drink while I was going to the conference. And, so I thought, I'm going to approach these tribes and say, hey, I'm putting together a team of people like Brenda Harvey Harris and Barry and his brother Derek Webster from Nebraska. I've got Winona Ruland Kirk. She's interested, a Canadian. Actually, she's Lakota, Dakota, and Nakota. All three tribes from the United States as their bloodlines. But she grew up in Alberta, British Columbia, in an Indian reservation that has, to this day, a lot of Sasquatch activity, and that's why she's interested in the subject. And then there's another fella, I believe he runs a group called Kindred Spirit, and he's a shaman, so he's the spiritual side, and he's Indian. And I reached out to another person yesterday. He's Indian. So I'm putting this team together, and then I'm talking to dancers from up in Vancouver Island way. You got the Kwakwaka'wakw, my tribe, and there's probably 3 different commercial dance groups that I can approach, and one of them will definitely step up. And if not, I have Peggy to do the Junakwa dance to show our Sasquatch, and also to do the Bukwus to show our smaller non-Sasquatch, a spiritual bipedal form known as Bukwus, which we talked about before. And then, of course, you got the Haidas from the Queen Charlotte Islands that's now known as Haida, and they have their dance of the Gogeet. And up in northern British Columbia in 2007, I went to the Hubaye in March. It's a gathering of different northern coastal tribes and interior tribes, and Shimshan and Nishka, and it's just a celebration of the winter's over, and they're showing all their dances. Well, me and my kids were just floored when all of a sudden the doors of this gymnasium we were all sitting in with bleachers, like a basketball gymnasium, the fire doors in the back corner opened up, and having to crouch comes their version of the Sasquatch. I can't remember what it was called. I believe it was, I won't even say it. I don't want to disrespect their names and their creature, but this big Sasquatch crouches and comes into the floor, and with the drums pounding, it's dancing, and it's just a beautiful, long-haired costume. And the dancer is on stilts. So this thing was like 8 feet high, and it's just amazing. And then you have the Coast Salish from the Fraser River area, Chehalis tribe, the ones where the word Sasquatch comes from. Well, they had 2 masks taken and by non-Indians decades ago, and one of them just got returned, and they just danced it for the first time just a while back, and it just looks like what Sasquatches look like and what everyone talks about what they look like, and it's got a great story. And then, of course, I'm sure I can find a few more tribes that have dances, like the Nuu-Chah-Nulth, possibly from West Coast Vancouver Island, maybe the Nuu-Halt from Bella Coola on central British Columbia's coast, and just north of there, the Hiltsup from Bella Bella. And I know where Les Stroud went to Clem 2, the Kitasoo Hey, they have Sasquatch dance as well. So I'm getting the word out through the modern day Moccasin Telegraph, the internet, and through podcasts. And thank you very much, Gunnar, for having me on here. And to other North American Indians that, hey, we're going to have a conference that is going to rock the Bigfoot Sasquatch world. We're getting her on like Donkey Kong, as some of the Res Squatchers like to say about the whole subject. And, can you imagine going to a conference that's not the same old speakers up there talking about the same old stuff? I even approached Dr. Meldrum, and he's keen to come because we need a scientific perspective. And I don't know any North American Indian scientists, doctors in the field. So, get the word out, everyone, and contact me if you know someone I can get a hold of, because we want to have a conference that's just going to be, mostly North American Indians, speaking about different subjects and the creatures, showing their dances, having mask carvers there demonstrating making Junakwa masks and whatever they call the creature, and even got a hold of Beater here in Washington State, and she's going to have a Junakwa design of mine, and she's going to make some beaded patterns, pendants and covers for moccasin tops and so forth. So, you can just imagine going to a conference now that's developed like that. And, of course, right back to your question, what is the television show Sasquatch Island? Well, I think that encompasses it. And, the conferences that hopefully these casinos pick up and host, and we get this tribe together of all these people in the know about Sasquatch, Bigfoot, and the arts of it and dances, and we start traveling around North America. Can you imagine, people like I'm seeing on internet daily, when the people were talking about the International Sasquatch Conference coming up in eastern Washington, Kennewick, in September, first week of September, and I'm a speaker there, and my wife Peggy is going to be dancing Kwakwaka'wakw there as I talk on stage and everything, and I hear all these people, I wish I could come there. It's so far from Florida, it's so far from Texas, and so forth. So I listen to the people on Sasquatch Island, on other groups that I post on Facebook and emails and phone messages. I listen to you people out there, and you guys want that, so I'm developing exactly that, and we're going to hopefully bring it to your home state, province, or territory. And this is what we need in the Sasquatch Bigfoot community, because it's going to bring more North American Indians out and come step up, and hopefully come step on the stage or in front of the mics, in front of the cameras, and share their perspectives to the creatures. And from what I've seen in places like Nebraska and Vancouver Island, and I hear about in other places known as Indian reservations throughout Canada and the U.S., and I hear these stories from my fellow Indigenous people, and they got it on like Donkey Kong. They got Sasquatches all over the place because we believe in them, and we know they exist. And when you hear stories about Sasquatches digging through dumpsters and, banging on house walls in the Indian reserves, standing on the porch of someone's place in Nebraska, and these two twin boys, I think they were twins anyway, telling me, and you could see the terror and fear in their faces and hear it in their voices as they're talking, telling me about how the Sasquatch was standing on their porch, that very week. So it's, something that as Indians, we're apprehensive to invite people onto our reservations and share our stories. And we have good reason for that, but the tides always must change. And that's what I'm helping to do, is change this tide so that hopefully a lot of the Indians are going to come forward, and like myself and others that are sharing our perspectives and stories about these creatures and our research efforts and our population, the numbers in our Indian reserves and traditional territories. So it's a whole change of tide coming, people. And, Mox and Telegraph, modern day smoke signals, the internet, phones, of course. It's up to you as listeners. Get it out. Don't just end by smiling and nodding your head and go, that sounds cool. I think I might go to one of those. Be like us Indians, chatter and Sasquatches. Chatter, chatter, chatter. Get it out. Everyone's got to hear about this, and hopefully some people will be Indians and say, hey, I better give Tom a call. I got a good story. I got a good mask. I got a good dance. And we'll add them to the conference list and to the filming of Sasquatch Island list, and, it's just going to make it all better for all of us. There you go.
Well, this is something completely unique. It's never been done before. Just like Sasquatch Island is a perspective that's not been commonly shared. Most of the stuff about Bigfoot, Sasquatch is, been very sensationalized, and there's a completely different perspective and respect and relationship with these creatures, with the First Nations people, than say the European, us white folks. It's completely different. We got to see it, and most people, the laymen, look at it as a legend, something silly, and it's just in your culture, it's just accepted as a matter of fact. They exist. They're just another part of the animal world. It's completely different.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's just another. Some tribes look at it as just another tribe. I can't, like Kwakwaka'wakw Nation, some, in some of the writings and some of the people even say that it, has a area of the spiritual realm, the Junakwa, and that's why you see on the totem poles of the old days, hollow eye sockets representing something from the spiritual realm. And then a lot of us just look at it as, just a Sasquatch. You don't put it into a classification of relic humanoid, primate, or spiritual. It's a Sasquatch. It's out there. So, it's like a deer, like a bear, cougar. And we can sit here all day and debate on what it is, and it's all speculation and, hogwash, basically, because we don't have one to study. And, that's why I focus on, hopefully we can get this conclusive proof. And, I'm pretty sure, with some of the projects I have lined up here late, we're going to see, hopefully, conclusive proof come forward. But hopefully it'll happen by cooperation between the indigenous peoples, finally saying, okay, let's put this together and release it. Or maybe it's going to be someone finally giving the First Nations, what we deserve, equality. When you look at it, from an Indian's perspective, all these shows that are out there and still out there, if and when there is Indian participation, well, there's your 2.3 minutes, and when the checks come from the network, you're not getting any. So you have to look at it from our way, and that's why I always call it Indianuity. You got to look at things a little differently. You got to not follow like the sheep pack, nor can you be like, unfortunately, a lot of us Indians were for generations. Browbeat, stay within the confines of your Indian reserves and don't be seen or heard from unless we want to see you or hear from you, and that's not going to be very often. That's what it was like. So from an Indian's perspective, people always wonder and scratch their head, they clam up all the time and they don't say anything. And, well, I wonder why. So that's what I'm trying to change. And by doing that, it's all for a positive cause. We're going to get things out about those Sasquatch, Bigfoot, that are, number one, correct, because I just read a book the other day on Sasquatch, Bigfoot, and I just went, oh my God, they're calling the Bakwus the Sasquatch. No, go to the Umicta Cultural Center's website in Alert Bay, umicta.ca, and it tells you right in there, if you're writing a book about Sasquatches and you want to put any perspective about the Kwakwaka'wakw First Nation, number one, you should come ask our permission if you're going to put anything in your book or your television show and have our participation. And if you don't, go to the Umicta.ca website and read about the Sasquatch, which is Junakwa, and the spiritual creature known as Bakwus, so that you can separate them, so that if you are going to go plagiarize our stories and our history and use our crests, because you got to remember, their crests, our stories of these creatures are private property of the Kwakwaka'wakw tribes, families. So in our law, you can't just go talk about it. You have to ask our permission, get our permission. So when you write about it and all of a sudden someone's, and it's in numerous books, people are referring to the Bakwus as the Sasquatch, as the Kwakwaka'wakw. No, it's absolutely wrong. That's, just totally wrong. That's like saying Jesus Christ is a Muslim. You don't do that kind of stuff. So that's why, through the years, of rolling my eyebrows and banging my head against the wall, I said, wait a second, you can be a whiny Indian about this like a lot of people do, or you can learn a little bit more about this television production and everything and go do it. So I started working decades ago. I remember doing X-Monsters from BBC. I did a segment with them. Even though they trounced it, they were trying to debunk the whole thing. Pompous, bloody English people just doing like they usually do, twisting things around. But and then I did Monster Quest, I believe it was called, when it first started years ago. I was on there with the same episode with Todd Neese from the American Primate Conservancy, a good friend of mine and who I work with that conservancy. And as you know, because we went in Operation Sea Monkey, but it's learn, new things, ingenuity, adapt, improvise and adapt. And then now, you look at what I'm doing, it's, scares the hell out of me sometimes when I think about it, going, You've never thrown a conference before. You help throw conferences when you're in Aboriginal Tourism British Columbia as a director, and but to actually go out and put one together, and then, you know, I just thought, you know, everyone's got to learn somehow, and what's the best way to jump up to your neck in the pond and get wet? So that's what I'm doing. And the television shows, you know, it's adapted now where we've got Sasquatch Island our own, and we're having a heck of a good time out there filming. When we were in Seattle last month, you know, we're downtown in Occidental Square with that big, huge Kwakwaka'wakw junakwa, and we caught it at the perfect time after winter, so it's all covered in green lichen or whatever that moss is growing on it, and it looks super spooky, and we had the high def and got some good pictures of that. And, you know, Seattle itself, there's so much in Seattle that people don't know about. You know, you got the Burke Museum up at the University of Washington, and they have a phenomenal carving of a tunahua with coppers in her hand raised above her head. They have a stone carving of a Sasquatch in display, and they have masks downstairs. And then you go to downtown Seattle, and they have one of the most, I guess, one of the better West Coast Native Indian displays, but it's mostly Kwakwaka'wakw from northern Vancouver Island, which I was really amazed at. And they have these beautiful junakas in their house posts from one of the villages, and I know the story on that, and they got masks in there. And then you go to the galleries at Pike Place Market. There's 3 Native Indian art galleries there, and I work with one of them, and they got all kinds of Sasquatch Bigfoot carvings from the different tribes. And then you go down the waterfront, and it's just Sasquatch Bigfoot scrog everywhere. T-shirts, coffee cups, shooter glasses, keychains, stuffy animals, stickers, fridge magnets, you name it. It's just overrun with Sasquatch stuff, especially this year. And, you know, a lot of people that are coming here to jump on the cruise ships, you know, you remember that, you know, Sasquatch Island, you know, we have Hamumu Adventures as well, where we do walk the Seattle Sasquatch Safari. So I take you through Seattle, showing you all this stuff and telling you the First Nations perspectives and my encounters and other stories about it. And then my wife, Peggy, she'll dance the Junakwan Bakwus for you, so you know the different steps of these 2 creatures, and you know the separation between the spiritual Bakwus and how it's small, and then you see what we call the Sasquatch, the Junakwa, and you see her dancing, and just like you would in a big house, in a potlatch. So, you know, Sasquatch Island, which is HamumuAdventures.com, we're, you know, like people say to me, oh, you got a lot of irons in the fire, so to speak. And I go, yeah, well, it's my career. I've always been in eco-cultural tourism, and now I've sort of kicked it up a notch. But, you know, I get to do things like go to Nebraska, hang out with the Res Watching guys, and who are Indians, of course. And, you know, I've been invited to other places, so I get to see a lot more of Turtle Island, and I get to hear more about the Sasquatch Bigfoot from different tribes. But I'm going to share it with everyone, and that's the good thing. There you go.
So,
first,
yeah, I'm still. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Your audio
okay.
Changed a little bit there. Sound like
okay,
you
I'll try
dropped
to fix it
your mic. Hold on just a sec, folks. I'm going to have to call Thomas back. Yeah, it's interesting how the whole First Nations, Native peoples. Here we go. He's back. Hey, Thomas. Welcome back.
Hi, I'm back again. Yeah, I actually knocked something on the phone, but we're back again.
Okay. So, where can folks find Sasquatch Island, your TV show? Is it available now? And
it's not out yet. We're still in production right now, and we're in editing and everything right now for the first few episodes, and we're going to be filming more ongoing. We're scheduled July up in the Northwest Territories to go up there, and people hear about Naga and from the Dene tribes up there and northern Crees. The best way is just join Sasquatch Island, the Facebook group. And if you're not in the Facebook group, just send me an email. And if you want to communicate with me, try to use my email address, tom.sewid@gmail.com. A lot of people like using Facebook messaging and all that stuff. And, man, everything gets lost in space because you get so much people coming through, as you probably know, with Facebook. So it's just email's the best, or phone me. Sasquatch Island, the Facebook group, you can go through there. Like I say, private message me your information as well. And then hamumuadventures.com. Just think of Happy Cow Cow, HAMOOMOO adventures.com. Hamumu Adventures, and everything's there, of course, all the contact information. Awesome.
So you've had some personal encounters, so that you're not talking, and there's the the acceptance of Sasquatch as a real creature in your culture, but you've had personal encounters that leave no doubt. Can you share some of those with us?
First, I lived out in bush since 1989. I got put out there as a native tribal watchman in our abandoned native village in the summer season, and I was supposed to clean it up, which we did with weed eaters because it was abandoned for 20 years, and coastal rainforest is jungle. It took it over, so we opened up the big house remains, trails, built an outhouse, opened up the fallen totem poles that were on the ground throughout Mama Lalakula village of the last potlatch, they call it, but it's actually known as Mimquamlis by our people. And we've cleared it all up, and these tourists came and everything, and I was a watchman there for 1989, 90, and then after that the tribe quit funding it, so I took over privately with Village Island Tours, and I would open up more campsites through the Broughton Archipelago for sea kayakers, do tours every day in the abandoned native village, and just basically lived out in bush in I had a 26-foot trailer when I first started with a little 10-foot addition, like you saw in Operation Sea Monkey, all caved in now and broken apart. But we lived out in bush, and we went there one day, and we had one was sleeping behind the trailer, and my partner that came in with me, Trevor, he spooked it, and it jumped up and ran into the bush. And by the time I got outside, I could just smell it, stink, and we couldn't see it, of course. Those things move like the wind through the forest, as most people know. And then after that, that's when the incidents started happening, where we were putting things together, going, maybe those wolves we heard that time weren't wolves, because they sure sounded different, the howling. And, we didn't really know anything about these creatures other than a few shows I'd seen and, some books I'd read. And I certainly hadn't heard any vocalizations until I got out there, and that's when talking to different people from the region, and that's when they said, yeah, they start, making a lot of noise. That's why their lips are puckered up on the masks we have. And started putting all the pieces together, and sure enough, next year when we're out there at the end of September, we could hear the vocalization from island to island, two different creatures. And we know darn well they weren't wolves, we don't have coyotes out there, and they were sure as heck weren't owls, not that loud. And 1991, early 90s, I think it was, I can't remember the exact date, I'm getting old, I'm 53 now, but I was running a commercial salmon seine boat, and on days when I was on that part of the coast fishing in August and September, when I wasn't fishing with the commercial salmon seine boat and my crew of 5, I was anchored out in Village Island doing native tours, because they used to make $10 a person. Some days you can get 100 people in that village. It's $1,000 cash on the barrelhead, no income tax, because it's an Indian reserve and you don't have to report it to any government official. So, cha-ching, it was good money. So I was in there doing that. And one night when we were anchored out in native anchorage, and my trailer's up on the beach with the addition, and it's still in pretty good shape. My buddy from Alert Bay, rest his soul, but his nickname was Sparkplug, and he was a distant relative of mine and a bushman. He used to stay in there all the time. And while we're anchored out, we heard something on the beach, a whistle. Oh, actually, the first thing we heard was it sounded like someone hitting metal. And right away I thought, when I heard this, hour after darkness, when I heard this bang, first thing I thought was, oh, it must be one of those metal 5-gallon kerosene cans empty underneath the trailer. And because it was hot, it expanded during the day, and now it's cooling. It's contracted and, made that banging noise like metal drums do all the time. And then I thought about it, and I said, no, we removed those cans last year. They're not under the trailer no more. And then that's when, we were looking, me and Dean, my crewman, he's a Native Indian too, we're looking at the trailer. Moon's out, there's no wind, and you could see 2 big shadows go in front of this trailer. Now you can just picture a 26-foot long trailer you tow behind your pickup truck. That's what it was. So, it's got to be, the doors, what the hell is the door jam, 7 feet? So the trailer itself's got to be 8 foot high, and then you got the wheels on top of that, so you're looking at probably from the ground to the top of the trailer roof is 10 feet. But the 2 shadows we saw, one of them being bigger, of course, it wasn't that high. It was like more than 2/3 the distance, so it was well over 6 foot, 6.5 feet. And these 2 shadows go by the trailer, and, it's just like, holy. And you get this big, but it's dark, so you don't know for sure, and then you get this big stink. Wallace Yachbala, big stink. And it just smells like when you're in the city and a street person with a shopping cart passes you real close and you accidentally keep breathing and you smell that rotten, stink, sour, gag you right now human stench of that street person. And who knows how many months they've gone without a shower, and you just smelt it, and now you want to gag. Well, that's what we smelled, but 10 times worse. That whole bay just filled. It was like almost wanting to make your eyes water, like someone having a real bad fart close to you. Man, it was just nasty. And then, we sitting there, we got a Coleman stove with a big, huge pot of crabs cooking. I went over and turned the gas off because, it makes that noise when it's cooking. And we're listening and listening. And I opened the galley door, and my girlfriend and my crewman were playing cards. And they had the boom box up a little bit, and they're laughing and everything. And I went in, I turned the boom box down, and I said, hey, you guys be quiet. We got something on the beach. So I walked back on the deck beside Dean, and we're watching and listening. And you hear Trevor inside, Jojo, give me a cigarette. And she started giving him heck because he spent all his money on the weekend on things other than cigarettes. And as a fisherman usually does in port. Anyway, she gives him a cigarette, and he comes out, and he was a chronic smoker like all of us, and he comes out and he puts his foot on the bulwark of the boat on the starboard side where we're standing, and he's smoking his cigarette, and it's about just started it, and all of a sudden he heard that whistle chirp again, and it was sort of like this. A whistling chirp, and real loud. And Trevor looks at me, and he's got big eyes and big nose, and he's a white guy, and he's like, Tom, what the heck was that? And I said, what do you think it is? That's our visitor from 2 years ago, a few years ago, come back to see us. And I think he brought his partner, because there's 2 of them up there. And Jojo, she comes out on deck about the same time, and she's like, oh, the beach stinks tonight. And Dean, who grew up with her on Cortez Island, and they used to clam dig for extra money as kids and teenagers, he looks at Jojo and goes, Josie, when have you smelled the beach like that at low tide? Besides that, it's almost high tide, he goes. And she comes beside me and grabs my arm and she goes, what is it? And I said, I think we have a Chunuk on the beach, Sasquatch, 2 of them. And Trevor, you see him flick his cigarette overboard. He's just like, doesn't want any part of this. And he's a bushman, but, he's the one who spooked the one when I was sleeping behind the trailer a few years before. And, he's heard the stories from his area where he grew up in central British Columbia in Quesnel. Well, he goes off deck through the galley. You hear him open the engine room door. It closes. You hear him go down the ladder across the metal grates, the engine room. You hear him open the big steel bulkhead door that leads into the forecastle where the crew sleeps in the bow part of the ship. And slam, the door goes. That's the last we saw of Trevor for the night. He wasn't coming back out. He didn't want no part of this. So Dean and I, of course, were, curiosity's up. So me, him, and Jojo decided to move up to the wheelhouse And Dean's looking at the spotlight that isn't on yet, and I'm lining it up to the beach. It's 100 yards away or so. And then he goes, "Yeah, right about there, Tom." And with all three of us looking, we turn on the spotlight. Lo and behold, and the commercial fish boat spotlight, which is real big. I don't know how many candle watt or anything, but it's big. It lit up that beach, and there's a big one that drops to his knee and pulls his arm up in front of his face to cover his face, and a smaller one drops to her knees, and she has her fetal position on her knees with her head on the ground with her arms over it, and her butt's pointing towards us, and her brown hair covered. And we knew exactly what we were seeing. We're trying to change our minds. "Oh, it's a deer." And Dean's like, "No, it's no deer." And, we're looking at it, and we're moving the spotlight around. After about 10 minutes, I figure, let's see if we can get these things moving. Oh, no, we told JoJo, "Look at the camera." So she runs to the galley. She grabs the 35-millimeter Instamatic camera, comes running up to the wheelhouse, pulls it out of the case, goes to take a picture. All of a sudden, damn, no film. Drawers are being opened and slammed or ripping through the boat trying to look for a film, which we never did find. And so then we, out in the bow, I remember jumping up and down, "Go on, move, trying to get these two creatures to move. I wanted to see more of them." And they were just solid, and you could see how that male with his left arm in front of his face breathing, you'd see a reflection of two eyes, one eye, 1.5 eye, two eyes, one and a half eye. And underneath the right arm of the one in the fetal position on lower down on the beach, with her butt sticking to us, you could see her green eye under her armpit looking out towards the spotlight. So this is going on for, we're well over 10 minutes now trying to get these things moving, whistling at them, yelling, you name it. They were not moving. And then all of a sudden I'm like, hey, that's like having a scratch-and-win ticket worth millions of dollars. Smithsonian Institution, maybe the UCLA University in California, maybe some big rich gazillionaire. They're going to want this critter. So I'm like, Dean, go grab your gun. And I go into captain's quarters, grab my gun, put it on the open window. The windows drop down in a pilot house of a commercial salmon seine boat made of wood. So I slide the window down. It's a perfect rest. I got my 300 Savage lined up on there for the neck of this big male, our sternum area. And Dean comes up from downstairs. No Trevor. I thought sure Trevor would come up, but nope, he wouldn't. And he came up with a gun case, and he opens it up, and he pulls out this rifle he showed up on the boat the day before with when we left port, puts it on starboard railing outside the pilot house door, and he's in the kneeling position with his scope. And I said, "What are you aiming at?" And he goes, "I got the crosshairs just in the base of the neck." I said, "Well, I got my iron sight on the sternum." I said, "I'll count 3, 2, 1, and then we'll start shooting and just keep dumping lead into that son of a bitch." And JoJo, she's like, "Tom, you know the Indian stories, you know the legends, don't shoot it." And all I'm thinking about is, here I am a commercial fisherman, and it's been a disastrous fishing season, and like everyone else in the world, I got financial responsibilities, and here's my gravy ticket standing there, kneeling there on the beach, offering me a perfect shot, and no one's got this critter yet that we knew of, and you get it, you're going to be rich. $40 a ticket to go in the Seattle Space Needle. Think how much money they make on gate ticket sales. Imagine having a Sasquatch in the cold box, and charging $50 a ticket, 1 million people a year. That's a lot of cash, and that's what I was thinking. And of course, JoJo's like, "You know the Indian legends, Tom. You know the Indian legends. You harm or disrespect, or especially you kill a Sasquatch or shoot at it, the curse is going to come. It might not be you dying. It'll be me and the kids, your loved ones around you, that are going to die a tragic death." And that's when I started, coming to my senses. And then I thought, I don't even know what caliber Dean's gun is. So hey, Dean, what caliber is your gun? He's like looking through the scope, all ready to squeeze off when I give the order. And he's like, 243. And right away, I didn't even hesitate. I'm like, barrel up, barrel up, barrel up. Because the thing that went through my mind is, there's no bloody way I'm hesitant enough with a 300 Savage 30 cal, and here Dean's going to let rip with a BB gun at 243? I thought, no way. And because I sure as hell don't want to go try to look for a wounded Sasquatch in a dark night forest. That thing going to pop your head off like pulling cherries off a tree, I thought. So we put the guns away, and that was that. Now we're looking at, 15 minutes or more has gone on. Spotlight's still on these creatures. And then we're just standing on the bow having a cigarette, and we're just looking at them and, thinking, wow, this is pretty cool. No one's, can't say I've ever had the chance to look at two Sasquatches on a beach before. And we're just sitting there, and then as the captain, getting past 20 minutes now, I'm thinking, them sons of bitches swim out here, and I go push the button and start my diesel motor downstairs, and that spotlight's been on for over 20 minutes, and my batteries are dead. Oh, we're got a world of hurt on our hands. So I said, okay, guys, we got to turn the spotlight off. Turned it off, and then you could hear them moving, and you could tell they weren't moving off that beach stealth mode. They were moving off with determination. You could hear that. And the grass, you got to remember, this is beginning of October. The grass is it's dry. It's probably 5 feet high. And you could hear that noise going through the grass because above the beach is a grassy knoll area. Back then, now it's big, huge spruce trees there. The spruce trees back then were dispersed, and they were only maybe 10 feet at the highest. And then you get to the wall of spruce and cedar and hemlock, the forest. And you hear them go through there, and you can hear their arms pushing things out of their way. And you can hear the crunch cracking as they're going through that forest. And they weren't in stealth mode. They must have been, more than likely, they're PO'd to the max because I just had a spotlight on them for over 20 minutes and pointing guns at them and jumping up and down like a fool on the bow of my boat trying to get them to move. So they were PO'd, I guess. And all of a sudden you just heard this big, rotten, standing tree. Boom! And that thing was, probably 40 feet high when we saw it the next day. But that came crashing down, and they went silent. So, being a captain, I hollered down in the engine room for Trevor and told him, start the motor and charge your batteries. And he hit the button downstairs, and thank God she turned over. And me and Jojo went to bed. Trevor's downstairs in his bunk in the forecastle, and me and Dean are just sitting on deck BSing away, and then we're up on the bridge just having smokes, BSing away, and motors running for over an hour. And we shut her down. Batteries, got some charge to them. And then it wasn't 5 minutes after we shut her down, we're sitting on the bridge, and you can hear one of those big blue herons fly out of the head of the bay. Rah, 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 rah. Something spooked it, and it flew by the boat. And then that's when that big one came out onto the beach, but it was too far away for us to light up with a spotlight because that part of the bay sort of goes in further, another 100, 200 yards. It walked across down the stream part. You hear it walking on the boulders because there's a stream, and at low tide, it's the stream's cut through all the sediment, so it's just big brown boulders in the stream bed, and you can hear those crunching as it's walking down there. I would imagine so it didn't leave tracks. But when I got to the low water part, it began to walk across the muddy beach, and he was a little closer to the boat, so we lit him up again with a spotlight, but all we got was eye shine, and there's like a mist above the beach, so he couldn't see anything, so we shut that off, and you could hear him, the big, huge, sticky, muddy footprints going through the mud beach, and then he's behind this rock point, and you could see his head pop up and his shoulders, and to me it looked like a 45-gallon drum and a half. That's how wide it was. The thing was bloody big, and it crept along the beach, and that's when Dean, when it was right parallel with my boat, it's now within 60 yards of us because the boat, the way it's laying in this bay at anchor, and the thing's creeping along the beach. And all I remember is Dean like, holy Christ, what is that? You're all excited, and thing's so close now, and that thing stood up, and it snorted. And I remember seeing the big, long hairs hanging off the bicep part of its left arm as it stood up, and it just strode with these monster strides. Ran to the wheelhouse, throw the spotlight on, turn the thing so the beam's coming going from bow to stern, and point it in the bushes where you see it grab an alder tree and pull itself up from the beach and walk into the forest. It's gone. Turn the spotlight off, and you hear it going through the slough. Sound like a D8 cat just pushing through that slough. Slough is a real noisy, round leaf, waxy type of leaf. foliage under the evergreen canopy in our region, and it's noisy to walk through. You can't stealth through that. This thing's going crunch, 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 and it stops, and then it whistles. And then further in the island, you hear a higher pitch whistle, and then crunch, 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 disappears. So what it was doing, it was whistling to its mate, "Where are you?" And then they met, and I guess they went into my abandoned native village where we were anchored east of it. Behind the village, it's like a peninsula. They went through the village, back of the island, into the village, which is probably no more than less than a quarter mile. Went in to feed on abandoned villages' fruit trees that have gone wild that time of the year. A lot of plums, crab apples, and a few blackberries, loganberries are still remaining in there. The bears have had their way with it through July, August, September, but during that time of the year, I found that there's still fruit at the ends of branches and that, and places that the bears, it's not worth their while to go for. It's unsafe. And now the Sasquatches go into the village and they start harvesting them. And that's why we have so much activity in our area. And that's why I brought you guys there last year, Operation Sea Monkey, and I'll be there again at the end of September, beginning of October. That's the best window, September, October. Weather's a little bit warmer than November, December, January. And anyone wants to come, Mumu Adventures, we do Sasquatch expeditions and adventures, and I like bringing people out there, and one of the ways is we go out with a kayak, so we're stealth, a double kayak, which is very stable. If it's just one person, if there's more, I can bring speedboats and hire big boats, but going with a kayak in September is wicked. And we just go camp around, set up at night times, and so if you have a flurry, you might want to bring it. I'm going to contract you up, because if we do get conclusive proof, we split everything equally, all the profits from it. Sasquatch is a business, and I'm full disclosure with everyone. So every time I go out investigating, researching, I always pull out a piece of paper and we write up a contract, sign off, date it, and we all get our copies. Because, like I had with the guns, you shoot it, you got a multi-million-dollar scratch and win ticket, and you just came up spades and you're a winner. I'm not going to do that, but if you shoot it with a video, FLIR especially, and video camera and digital recorder for the sounds, and you get good enough stuff, you look at Roger Patterson's clip, how much money that clip has generated through the decades. And, when the next one comes out, and especially if it's really something that shuts the skeptics up, you're going to make millions off that. So there you go.
We had the pleasure of but coming up with you during Operation Sea Monkey this last year, and you took us through the area of these islands, and we didn't have anything that was conclusive. We had some interesting audio stuff a couple times that people reported hearing, but it's and some people commented that, you didn't come back with anything. Well, it's always, just like everything when you're going out looking for a Bigfoot, even if you're going out deer hunting or elk hunting, you're not always going to get something every time, or else they wouldn't be hunting, it'd just be finding. It was kind of a preliminary trip into this area and to get familiar with the layout of the land, so to speak, and it was a fascinating adventure. We had Thomas Steenberg with us, and of course Todd Neese was there, Victoria Williams, and Ron, and I'm forgetting Ron's name, but they
Moorhead.
Actually did thank Ron Moorhead and the other Ron, who did the cinematography. And sorry, Ron, I know who you are. but I know that there was some conversation about doing that again, and it's a excellent area that has tons of food. In fact, one morning you went out and came back with a bucket full of clams and to show what the abundance of protein source that was in the area. And one of the cool things is because you were kind of immersed in that that whole area for years and years. And so you have intimate knowledge of that whole area. And with your interest in Sasquatch and your very inquisitive mind, you have developed some theories about movement and how they might travel between islands and come from the main island over to these islands. And that is a subject that we'll have to do a whole nother show on, because that was one of the reasons that Operation Sea Monkey came about. And just because it's kind of a playful name, don't think it wasn't actually a serious outing. It was. We weren't just sitting on the boat, sipping Mai Tais. There was actual research going on. We spent some long nights surveying shorelines with therms, and it was, and we had actually had a experience with a grizzly bear on the beach. But again, that's I've told that story on the show a few times. So, but Thomas, I want to thank you for joining us for these 2 episodes. We'd love to have you come back on again, because I know that you have tons more to share on the subject of Sasquatch. And I wish you nothing but good luck with Sasquatch Island. I'm sure it's going to be a big hit. And I would encourage people that would enjoy seeing this kind of what Thomas is proposing for a conference based on First Nations and Indigenous people's perspective on the subject, to get a hold of Thomas and let's get that thing going. Because I for one, that it's never been done, and the same as the perspective with Sasquatch Island is this: you're approaching things from a perspective that has huge, to me, historical benefit and benefit with the knowledge of your culture to the Bigfoot community, because it's something that's just ingrained in, and it has such a different feel about it than the way that what has been done before. So, Thomas, I thank you again for joining us on Monster X Radio.
Oh, it's been fun. I'll definitely be back again, because I've only given you one encounter. The second encounter was 2006 with my sister, when she was trying to be Jesus and walk across the water. She was so scared. And then the third encounter, which I haven't released yet, but I'd like to release it here pretty soon. It didn't take place just one time. Third encounter took place over a 2-month period where we had some pretty good stuff going on. But that's, like I say, another time. I thank you very much for putting me on. And by all means, people go to Sasquatch Island, ask to join. There's no repetition posts on there, meaning stuff you've seen on other pages aren't there. It's all stuff I've put together on our region of northern Vancouver Island and the First Nations Indian perspective. You'll enjoy it. You have to ask to join. And if you want to take a tour with me, be it a couple hours in the city, Sasquatch Safari, or out in the bush for multi-days or on boats, hamumuadventures.com. And I thank you all very much. I look forward to being back on Monster X. And don't forget, drink your Squatch coffee, because it's pretty good. And I'm going to the kitchen to grab another one. I thank you all.
Right,
now go in peace.
Yeah, right. Thanks, buddy. We will talk to you again soon.
Okay.
It's Memorial Day. It's time to get out of town and get on the water. This summer, gear up for the fish, the food, and the family. Cabela's Memorial Day Sale. Family events, amazing deals. Your one stop before the campfire. Save $200 on Champion Patriot generators and $100 on select kayaks. Plus, get Cabela's adult and youth deluxe flotation vests for only $9.99 and $20 in Cabela's bucks when purchasing Chaco sandals. Shop in-store and online at Cabela's.com. It's Memorial Day. It's time to get out of town and get on the water. This summer, gear up for the fish, the food, and the family. Cabela's Memorial Day sale. Family events, amazing deals. Your one stop before the campfire. Save $200 on Champion Patriot generators and $100 on select kayaks. Plus, get Cabela's adult and youth deluxe flotation vests for only $9.99 and $20 in Cabela's bucks when purchasing Chaco sandals. Shop in-store and online at Cabela's.com.